You of course, being in the inspection business, you guys, you're like right on the pulse. You know exactly how many deals are getting done, how busy it is, because, well, you're the one out there making sure the houses are still going to stand.
Well, I can't keep track of it. Unfortunately, it's been so busy, and honestly, we're still turning down a number of jobs at least every week, every 10 to 15, every week we're turning down. We're that busy, but also we're very good at what we do.
Yeah. So when you start talking to, we start looking at the inspection process. Of course, inspectors have killed deals before. We know that. I mean, it's been tough. Well, maybe the house has killed deals before. But, when sellers are starting to think about selling their house, I mean, there's some stuff they should probably do in order to make sure that maybe that inspection is a little bit smoother. Is that fair? I mean, 'cause buyers will freak out.
Well, there's no question about that. But first of all, yeah, good inspectors don't kill deals.
Yes,
okay?
I'm sorry. That was my industry speak.
Houses kill deals. So yes, just like some mortgage brokers.
Sure, we've all killed deals before.
Giving us those last minute phone calls to, we got to have these papers before we can close.
That's right.
So things do happen, unfortunately. But yes, no question. Just kind of Realtor 101. Why I just don't understand so oftentimes why we get to a house and a good inspector is always going to get to his job site 30 to 45 minutes early as a general rule. He wants to get set up. He wants to look professional. It's kind of like most people when they get to their job, they like to kind of sit down at their desk, maybe have their cup of coffee, kind of get in the rhythm
Facebook.
Of things.
Yeah, sure. Well, some people call it the rhythm. Some people call it just, dinking around.
Well, that could be too, but it's hard to go into if every once in a while I think I've been late to a job site maybe 3 times, and boy, when I pull in, man, I've got people right on top of me. I'm trying to focus on the house. I'm trying to get going and stuff, and it makes it very, very much of a challenge. So we try to get there early so we can really also kind of talk to the house. Houses, you hear about the horse whisperer and that kind of thing. A good inspector over time develops a feeling of being able to kind of just look at a house where he's kind of walking around without anybody yelling at him and stuff, and he can kind of see some things that kind of flag him for different areas in the house. So it's always nice to be prepared. And when I get to a house, so oftentimes people are like, they're just getting out of bed. I mean, I wake them up sometimes, and it's like, well, gosh, you have an appointment in, 30 minutes and you're not dressed, you're getting ready to take your shower and stuff. The house,
that must be awkward.
It is a little awkward. There's no question about it. And then the buyer shows up, and a lot of the buyers are early because they're excited and stuff. And so they're getting there, and you got somebody that's still in their PJs, the dogs are running around, the kids are running around, the house is a mess, smells from all kinds of different things. And really, a good realtor should make sure that the seller knows what to do. They should be out of that house an hour before the inspection starts. So if I get there and they're getting out of bed, they're 2 hours late for their presentation. Okay, that house should look sharp just like it did when they showed the house originally. Okay, when the buyer comes in, they want to see something that's really, really nice again.
Certainly. Now, so you've gone into these houses, and what you're basically saying is they're a train wreck. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. I mean, does that make it hard for you and the buyer to kind of see past just the toys on the ground?
Well, there's no question. There's those situations, and of course, every once in a while, I go into a house that is a hoarder where you cannot even see the
about hoarders.
Oh my God! So we don't want to go there. But when we go into a house, we'd like to have the stove cleared off. We'd like to have all the stuff not shoved in the stove. Unfortunately, I've learned that I need to look in a stove before I turn it on. One time and this is kind of right at the beginning where I learned that I needed to look inside of there. I had 3 of his car titles, and we're talking antique classic car titles in there, and some of his other financial stuff hidden in the stove. So, if I'd turned that on, that would all just gone poof. Not only destroyed that, but obviously caused a fire too.
Yeah, right. And the house you'd have a whole nother.
So we'd like to be able to get inside of an attic. Okay, if your attic access is in the closet, pull some clothes out, get the stuff away, so we could actually set up a ladder and be safe. And always bring sheets and stuff to cover up clothes and take kind of care of those kinds of things. But we really don't like moving your personal items when you've got a crawl space underneath the stairway and that kind of thing. We're pulling things out. We like to run all of the appliances, washer and dryers. I mean, getting to a house where the dirty laundry is in the washer, it's like, you know what? We're not moving that, okay?
What about boxes? Because a lot of people who are selling a house are probably moving. I mean, is there a strategy for boxes? Because I would think as many people as are leaving their laundry in the dirty clothes or washing machine or whatnot, there's probably an equal amount who have at least put some stuff in boxes.
Well, and I'm great with boxes, and a really good seller and a good listing agent is going to make sure that they stack their boxes kind of in the center of the garage so we can kind of at least walk the perimeter. We were at a house a couple weeks ago, and guy had a couple of big shelves with some personal stuff on it, and sometimes we'll move those kinds of things a little bit, but we always worry about breaking things, and we're not going to take on a lot of liability for that. But there was also a treadmill and some weights and all of this other kind of stuff in front of those shelves, and I just said, hey, there's no way I can get to that electrical panel. And I asked the agent if they'd like to come out and move the stuff, and she looked at it and she goes, well, I can't lift that stuff, So anyway, it was interesting because the seller, he was an engineer, and said, oh gosh, well, my electrical panel is just fine. I looked at it. I go, oh, okay. And he says, well, I'm an electrical engineer. And I said, well, okay, I'd still like to see it. I'm not going to sign off on an electrical panel that I haven't seen, or have an electrician come out and take a look at it.
Sure.
Well, I'm not paying for that, and blah, 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 and just went on and on. And so anyway, finally I had to go back and look at the electrical panel, and there were a couple of things that were definitely wrong on it, okay? Mm-hmm. And he looked at, well, I don't know why the other inspector didn't catch that stuff when I bought the house. But, those are the kinds of things that we run into all the time. And we don't like to create conflicts with clients and those kinds of things. But there's only certain things we can do.
So really what it comes down to, there's the cleanliness factor, in some ways, right? A seller to prepare, and this is after the deal is done or getting done. So what is the big benefit to, I suppose, the seller for getting all this stuff moved? Is it just the simplicity?
Well, yes. Yeah, it makes things, and
some of them probably want to cover stuff up, right? No,
well,
right, the box in front of an electrical panel, so you don't see the electrical panel. Now, it's tough for you to say it's bad or good.
Well, and this is something that we see all the time, and where people actually do cover things up, and believe me, we're gonna find it. Okay, or we're gonna make you move the stuff so that we can find it, and it really takes away the trust with the buyer.
Sure.
It creates kind of a conflict in terms of negotiations because all of a sudden...
Start looking at that extra coat of paint a little bit more on the wall, wondering what's behind it.
I love it when people have, painted their decks and stuff to cover all the rot and everything. And it's just like, golly, this is obviously ready to come down.
Jim, we just have about a minute left before we have to go to break. But so when you start... Do you work with sellers and their real estate agents on preparing that house for the inspection? Is that something you work with a lot I do. Is it the hope and pray method?
No, actually, I do quite a bit of pre-listing inspections and highly recommend them. I was in a house the other day and was really disappointed that it hadn't had a pre-listing inspection. The crawl space was just an abomination. Okay, there were rodents, fallen insulation, wires hanging everywhere. We got plumbing leaks. We got water in the crawl space and stuff. And when we have that, rats, water in a crawl space, leaky roof, those kinds of things, okay, nothing will turn a buyer off faster than those kinds of issues. And I don't like to find them, Crawling down in a dirty crawl space.
Can't imagine why.
Exciting. Yeah, it's the highlight of
like
every deal.